Hi, everybody, and welcome. It is great to have you with us today. The Washington Animal Rescue League and the Washington Humane Society have merged, the two organizations deciding it is better to work together than to have overlapping functions and to compete for the same donor base. The new organization will be headed by our next guest. Lisa LaFontaine has been president and CEO of the Washington Humane Society, and she takes the same titles with her to the combined organization. Good to have you here.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Thanks so much for coming in.
Sure.
Tell us about the decision to merge two of the big names, two of the big operators, two of the most compassionate organizations that exist in the Washington area, Washington Humane and Washington Animal Rescue League.
Yes, with over 200 years of service between them. And it's interesting because when we were founded, and Washington Animal Rescue League was founded in 1914. The two organizations worked together back then because Washington Humane Society did field work through officers rescuing animals. Washington Animal Rescue League had a place to bring those animals to. And so in the early days, the organizations were very collaborative. And over the years, as their missions grew apart a little bit and they had distinct donor bases, the collaboration wasn't as close as it could be. And when I arrived here in Washington 8 years ago, it seemed really crazy to me that there were two groups who had such similar programs, who in some cases were a mile apart in their facilities, and who weren't doing a lot together. So we started just by sharing animals, programs, expertise, and it all...
So very informal.
Very informal, but it all went so well that we thought, okay, let's not institutionalize the difference between us. Let's join forces so we can do more together.
Will there be? Are you expecting the classic efficiencies that often come when two organizations merge rather than have two bookkeeping operations and two of this and two of that?
Yes.
Now you can sort of combine, and while it might mean this or that for individuals who are on the payroll now, big picture in terms of putting every dollar that you raise to the best possible use for animals, this presumably is part of the motivation now with merger.
Without even touching programs, and by that I mean all the programs stay exactly as they are today, we will save in excess of $500,000. And that's just a back of the envelope estimate that we've done going into this. And we can immediately put that money toward animals and people. A lot of our programs are focused on people who are on the verge of having to give up an animal, it's a family member. It's a really painful thing. So we're really excited about the efficiencies, and we're also excited that we can now tell our donors, you're making a better investment, and we can do more good work.
Can you talk about the primary mission of what the two organizations are, as was the case up to the moment of merger, and what you foresee as the primary components of your day-to-day work going forward?
Absolutely. The Washington Humane Society has done field work through officers. So officers who are investigating cruelty or neglect of animals, officers who are actually in the streets of D.C. rescuing all species, wildlife, companion animals, you name it. And in
the Washington Animal Rescue League early days, horses were a big part, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's really whatever animals are most prevalent in society at that time. And so the Washington Animal Rescue League's real strength has been in adopting animals out through the beautiful facility on Oglethorpe and a first-class medical program for animals. And so we symbolized the merger on the day that it was announced by bringing an animal in the field who came in with terrible injuries in the hands of officers of Washington Humane Society into the Washington Animal Rescue League's medical center. So there's an animal that doesn't have to go to 3 or 4 different places before getting the medical help she needs. To me, that's a symbol of what we can do.
So many of these animals have been through traumatic situations. They're lucky to be alive.
Yeah.
They may have physical scars and emotional scars from whatever they've been through. And the work of helping that animal heal whatever their body issues are and regain a sense of that it's okay to be with people, provided it's the right people, that takes time, it takes money, and that's where you all have shined, whichever the right word is, so beautifully over so many decades.
And I think the thing that's really nice about this merger is that no time or nothing is wasted in helping that animal. From the minute we put our hands on that animal, we can begin to prepare them for that recovery and moving into a new home. And so they don't take a step backwards. They just keep moving forward until they find their new family.
Scotland Hazley, this is an amazingly generous area, and I hope you'll reflect and talk about that for a moment. I've told this story before, but I love it so much I'm going to tell it again right now. Years ago, many years ago, Scotland Hazley was the head of the Washington Animal Rescue League. I think he was sort of the man whose vision created the facility on Oglethorpe Place that you mentioned, with the wonderful cat and dog and the running water and all that stuff. Washington Animal Rescue League had a fundraising event, and a chauffeur came in with an envelope and said, "Where's Scotland Hazley?" and handed Scotland the envelope. The person in the car outside didn't want to come in, didn't want a big hoopla or hullabaloo made, but they did want to donate. They had seen him on this show, and they knew about the event, wanted to contribute. They dropped off a check for $10,000.
Wow.
And wanted to remain anonymous. So whether it's the kid who opens the piggy bank to help animals, or someone like that who's able to make the big gesture, the big check, this area has really come through consistently over time.
That is so true. And you know, the interesting thing about animal welfare is that every demographic gives to us. I remember a story from a humane society I worked in before I came to Washington, where I was at the front desk and I saw an older couple come in a beat-up car. And my initial judgment was they were coming for free food. But they weren't. They came in with a $10,000 check and said, "Give this to the animals, please." And what I learned is that every penny they saved to support us. And so whether it's people who come in limousines or people who save everything they have extra to give to us, animals touch people. I don't know if it's because they can't speak. Maybe it's because they're just so unconditionally loving. But what I find is anyone who has lived with an animal wants to support an organization like ours. And now we can do more of that and make it easier for the public to do that.
And having had some rescue animals, they're the best.
They are the best.
They make the best companions and loving family members. If you've had the experience, you just can't say enough about what it means to bring an animal into your home and be the recipient. You know, the bumper sticker says, "Who rescued who?"
Yes, it's so true. And I actually got into this work because of the impact that an animal had on my daughter. And so I've seen it firsthand myself. They changed.
What did you see? What was that?
Well, in my daughter's case, she had a neurological condition called Tourette's syndrome when she was a child, and she couldn't sleep at night because of the tics that she had. And the cat that we had adopted from the local humane society would sit with her at night, and the purring would relax her. And in talking to other people, I found almost everybody had a story of an animal who had changed their lives. And that's what made me want to dedicate my lives to animals, because I see how much better they make society and people.
What will the new organization be called?
That is a great question. We are working right now with a couple of different firms to come up with a new name for the organization, because we feel like there's so much history between the two, and actually so much confusion about the difference between the two.
Right.
And rightfully so, because we are so similar. So we feel like with this combination and with this more powerful brand, we can come up with a new name that really represents the future. And so I hope that I can come on here in a couple of months when we have that name and announce it, because we really don't know yet. We're still working it through.
When you have that name, we would be happy to provide the venue for you to do exactly that. I read where you will have 5 facilities that you'll run as a combined organization?
Yes, but our plan over time is to consolidate those. The 5-year horizon is for us to have 2 facilities. Just as Washington Animal Rescue League has had beautiful facilities, Washington Humane Society has had profoundly inadequate facilities. And I was actually brought here to do a capital campaign to build a new place. And we have a shelter on New York Ave that really would fit well in a third world country, not the nation's capital. And we run a couple of adoption centers out of row houses on northern Georgia Ave. And we've bought property in the Capitol Riverfront area near the Navy Yard. And so the long-term plan is to maintain the beautiful Oglethorpe campus that exists today, and to build a new facility on M Street in the Naval Yard Capitol Riverfront area. So we have 2 vibrant facilities that serve all quadrants of the city, that are easy to get to for everybody, and where the animals can come easily.
In terms of having laws that protect animals, and not just words on the page, the laws, but enforcement, follow-up, action by government to make sure that we're treating our 4-legged friends as they deserve to be treated, what sort of lobbying, if any, or advocacy are you engaged in right now with in the district, in Maryland, in Virginia, nationally? What's front burner for you on this score right now?
Right now, what we're looking at is the overabundant breeding of animals for sale, and often without any vetting, often without any behavioral work, and it creates an overpopulation that it's hard for us to manage. And so we would really like to see that people who are breeding animals have to have some sort of permit to do so, so that we can regulate the conditions in which the animals are bred, and so that there's just some controls around it, so that we're not supplying more animals than the demand calls for.
When I was growing up, when a lot of us were growing up, the local pet store sold dogs and cats, and the other stuff, the leashes and the food, et cetera, the books, were secondary. If I'm not mistaken, most of the big chains, most of the big names have become partners of some sort in terms of what they do with the animals is help them find homes, and then they make copious money, which is great, on food, training manuals, grooming, you name it, toys, treats, all that stuff, right? So is this fairly embedded now in terms of the big names in the pet world, in terms of the stores?
Completely embedded. There are no stores in the district that sell animals. There are many stores in the district that have adoption events for our animals. And it's really nice. It's a win-win situation because our animals are not, there's nothing wrong with them. They're just unlucky in most cases. And people don't realize that. So when they see them in a store, in a retail environment, and realize they look just like the dogs that are walking around in the aisles with their owners, it helps to dismiss that stereotype people have that something's wrong with a shelter animal. And then for the store, if the adoption goes well, which it almost always does, they get a lifetime of business out of that. So it's a great win-win.
Lisa LaFontaine, President and CEO of the Washington Humane Society, the Humane Society of Washington Animal Rescue League merging, and when you have the new name in a couple weeks' time, we would love to be the place where you unveil it. So
I'd love to be here.
Please, it's an open invitation.
Okay,
thanks very much for your time. We'll step aside. We're back, though, with much more News Talk right after this.